I always thought about harming myself.
I'm shy. I struggled with making friends.
I never thought I could do anything. I have extremely low self esteem.
Lately, I've been eating my pain away. Just throw it back up. I've been struggling to lose weight. Somebody said I don't fit in just because I wear my hair the way I like it.
One out of five American girls suffer from mental health problems. Don't be that girl. Talk to someone.
Those thoughts I had are long gone, for I have a future I need to get to.
In order to get better, I had to do better. I learned how to make friends.
I believe in myself. That's when everyone else did, I set an example.
Instead of me eating everything, I started watching my calories. The weight is falling off. I went to change my hair, but I decided it was for me. It's for me.
A PSA from the Curvy Girl Project.
And good morning, and welcome to Expose Under the Sun, sponsored by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we've got a lot of information that we'd like to disseminate out to you today. This has been a very, very interesting beginning of the end of the spring and the beginning of the summer, getting ready to start around. We've had a lot of things that have occurred. But before we get started and reporting out some of the things that's been happening and some of the things that are going to happen, our show is live. And if you'd like to get in contact with us, please do. And also, too, you can also get an opportunity to go and look at my Facebook Live and get a chance to see myself and my guest on the show today. And his name is Mr. Norman Clement. And I've had Norman on the show with me before. Norman is he's my go-to person, or one of my go-to people. Him, Percy Johnson, Kermit Williams, several others that are my go-to people when we want to talk about politics. And when we want to talk about the face of politics and talk about the things that are going on when it comes down to the political arena and what's going on, the movers and shakers in Detroit and around the Detroit area. But there's been so much that has been happening now that we want to kind of do a little bit of a catch-up. But before we get started, I just want to make two announcements before I bring my guest in. The first one is about a cross-generational conversation that's going to be conducted by the Building Brickmasters, which is a group of black men that I'm involved with. And we're having a conversation where we're going to ask the question, is it politics or is it politricks? And it's the view from the streets. So we're going to have different generations that are going to be on talking about politics. And it's going to be a Q&A where we're going to talk about the who, the what, the when, the where, the why when it comes down to upcoming elections. And we're going to have Generation Zs, we're going to have baby boomers, we're going to have millennials. And it's going to be Saturday, June the 8th. And it's going to be at the Ernest Ford Rec Center. And that's located at 10 Pitkin Street in Highland Park, Michigan. And it's going to be from noon to 2:30. So if you'd like to have your voices heard or your opinions heard, please come out, because we're going to be talking about the different generations and as to how they're voting. But the main thing we want to make certain of is who you are supporting. So if you are supporting one candidate over another candidate, that's your opinion, but that's what we want to talk about. So that we're not going to be telling you who to vote for, but we just want to hear the fact that you are voting, and we want to ensure that you are voting, because a no vote can vote for someone that you might be disappointed to win either in the primary or in the general election. The other thing I wanted to report out too was that they're going to also be doing some Get Out to Vote or GOTV, and that's going to be there's going to be a Juneteenth celebration, and that's going to be at Liberty Temple Baptist Church, located at 17188 Greenfield, and that's in Detroit, Michigan, right there on the corner of 6 Mile and Greenfield. But Dr. Steve Bland Jr. is the pastor there, and if you'd like to get more information about this event, you can contact 313-837-6331, and that's going to be held June the 14th through June the 16th. And it's sponsored by Michigan Voices, UAW, the Metro chapter of APRI. And they're going to have a lot of events going on that day, as well as the subsequent days following the 14th. But they're going to have, talking about expungements, they're going to have an expungement fair with attorneys that can help you to get your records expunged. They're going to have a zoo. They're going to have a truck that's going to have video games for the young people to come out, and they're going to have a lot of great food. There's going to be a lot of great ministering that's going to be done on that Sunday. So please come out. Again, that's June the 14th through the 16th. And my good friend Percy Johnson is one of the coordinators of that event. He's also one of the deacons there at the church. But again, that's going to be at Liberty Temple Baptist Church, 17188 Greenfield, corner of 6 Mile. And please, make sure if you don't have anything else, I know there's going to be a lot of Juneteenth celebrations, please come on out and support that event. But today, we're going to talk a little bit about politics. My special guest is a gentleman that, like I said, in and around the Detroit area. He needs no introduction. But for a few people that might not know who he is, I'll give this introduction. But his name is Norman Clement. And Norman, thank you for coming on Expose Under the Sun today.
No problem. Thank you so much.
Now, talk about, just give a quick little Cliff's Notes about your organization and what you do with Detroit Change Initiative.
Yep, so founded Detroit Change Initiative. We were founded in 2017. We go out to the community, really talk to the residents there to really understand their power and really see about the changes that they want to see in the community. We also partner with neighborhood organizations. We also partner with mentoring groups, doing work from DPSCD now in River Rouge area, really empowering people about far as the access of political power within their reach, understanding about far as different levels of politics, something that is nothing that everybody shuns against. It's a necessary part of life, and you can make a living from it. Also co-director of Change Initiative Action Fund, RC4 arm. So right now we're really highlighting great judges, great folks who are running for judge, because we're running for attorney generals. I mean, not attorney generals, but as far as district attorneys, and really get the idea of who supports us in our neighborhoods and who doesn't, and really hold folks accountable to that.
Now let's talk a little bit about the political arena right now. We know there's a big election that's coming up. There's a primary in August. There's a general election that's coming up in November. And we know this is a presidential election. Usually the presidential election, Norman, is the one that really draws out everybody to come out to vote. Well, that's the way we expect it to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that because this is a presidential election, there's a lot of people that are needing people's support on the ballot, even though there's two candidates or there's multiple candidates that are running, regardless, whatever your party affiliation is. But it's usually the Democratic Party running against the Republican Party. Everybody knows pretty much like who the incumbent is,
right,
and who the challenger is.
Right.
But now the thing is, there are other races that are going on. Senate for the state of Michigan,
yep,
congressional districts. There's also commissioner seats.
Mm-hmm.
There's judges, school board. But the thing about it is that what candidates are doing is that they need to have either enough signatures to be put on the ballot,
Yeah.
where they have to pay whatever the cost is to be on the ballot.
Right.
And we know, Norman, that just to kind of catch some of the individuals that might not know, there have been candidates that have used other services to acquire signatures, and some of these signatures have been found invalid, which doesn't allow the candidate that is running to meet that threshold of being on the ballot.
Right.
Kind of, let's just go and delve into that a little bit,
Yep. So depends what race you're running. If you're running for judge, state rep, state senate, senator, or you're running for congressman, there's requirements to get on the ballot. You have to get so many signatures of voting citizens to support your cause to run for your race. Some may not need it, but some do need those signatures. So it's up to each candidate to go out to meet the community where they are and ask them for support by getting a signature sign on there. Some candidates use their personal, they go out early, talk to folks, talk to their supporters, have supporters volunteer their time. Or some candidates use a vendor service that goes and collects forms from that. So some vendor services, you're supposed to triple check or double check before you turn those signatures in. And even then, as the candidate or the candidate's team is supposed to double check those signatures before they turn any signatures in to make sure everything is valid and good. And normally there's a threshold of every race. So Senate has a higher threshold than Congress and state rep, and so forth, so forth. So you are required to get that number of signatures. In getting those number of signatures, if you're using the vendor service or you're doing your own self-ground organization, your goal is to get twice as much than the signatures are required, because you may have some signatures that two people may have signed at a different location. Some people may not be registered voters. Some many people live out the area. And so you want to make sure you have a buffer to make sure you get on the ballot. And so that's what you pay. If you use a paid vendor or you do yourself signatures, that's what you should do. That's normally the cost when you create a buffer before so many signatures that you really need.
So back to what you were saying then, so you want to get the buffer to have either twice the number of signatures, so just in case of some signatures might be deemed invalid.
Right.
Now, what we're finding is that there are candidates now that, from what we knew last year when the gubernatorial race was running, and we had candidates that were running as Republicans for the gubernatorial seat that were not able to be put on the ballot because their signatures were deemed invalid due to signatures that may have been falsified or the word forged, on there. Now we've got races this year that are now allowing candidates to believe that they had enough signatures, but then when the challenge was made, maybe by someone else that was running against them, now we're finding out that these signatures are invalid as well. And one of the persons that, unfortunately, we're not really going to go into names, but was on the ballot for the congressional seat in the 13th district, who's was running against the incumbent, and we found that individual's signatures were deemed invalid. And I think this person missed the threshold by about 137.
137.
Signatures. So now let's talk a little bit about, there's going to be other candidates, because I'm understanding too, Norman, isn't there, I think I've heard there's 41 candidates in total?
Yes.
That may be deemed not eligible to be on the ballot, and we'll find this information out on the 31st of this month?
Yep.
And so what happens at that point?
So what happens at that point is that two things can happen. Either they can go to court and petition themselves to get on the ballot, which is probably unlikely. It's a very, very slim chance, or they will not be on the ballot. And, to have I can understand having 8. At first, I thought it was only 8. Now 41. When we found out this, more, and it may be more. And this is not just Democrats; this is Republicans also. And so there is a alarmness about that to me. Really alarmness about not able to beat the threshold if you're running to be wanting to be representing the people. And that is that some folks, announce ahead of time that they were running for elections. My term is just once you announce, once you put you in, you're able to collect signatures to secure the ballot. And so from that time frame to now, some folks were running for a year and a half of time from now. If you as a candidate from that time to be there, how come you were not on the ground getting signatures yourself or having a trusted team apart with you collecting signatures? That's the thing that's kind of shocking to me right now. With 41 people, and then also I question what firm did they use to collect the signatures. That's another thing. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of strange. So this is a very, very strange story. I've never heard 41 candidates off a lift. Maybe it's me. Darwin, have you heard that before?
I've never heard that either. I mean, I was a little shocked when I saw the 5 that were running for the gubernatorial seat.
Right.
I knew that there was I think the term was called signature match,
right, that
prevented people from running for city council, as well as for some state rep seats.
Yeah.
But I've not heard, hadn't heard this many candidates. Because, to me, Norman, people learn from mistakes in the past. And I think that the question to me would be if someone used a service to collect signatures that was deemed invalid on a previous election, they may want to kind of think about vetting that person or that organization a little bit more if they're thinking about using them themselves.
Right. And with the vendor service, and that's what comes into mind to really, if you really want to run for Congress, if you want to run for a race, if you're relying on the vendor service, and some of the best vendor services that they do have cost a lot of money. They cost a lot.
Now, what do they do? Do you normally know? Do they charge based on the total number of signatures, or do they charge for the individual signatures?
Some groups charge for the total number, and that total number may include also vetting per sheet. Also, they have to pay the guys who are collecting. And
now,
so,
when you say the word vetting per sheet, can you explain it to our audience?
So the term is vetting per sheet. So if you have a collector that's coming out and they're signing signatures there, so say they have 10 signatures on there, each of that person has a job, maybe have 5 or 10 sheets with them, and they turn them in. Before that person gets paid, they have to verify each of those sheets that is a legit person that they get paid. So some people get paid per signature or per sheet. And so if you have maybe 10 signatures, supposed to be maybe $100, and only have certain $100 per big sheet, you may have some sheets that, oh, wait a minute, that's $100, that's only $40 because the rest of your signatures are not valid. And so you had to check per sheet before you turn in to pay that person per cost to use that service there. And some companies have a threshold of if a vendor, of a canvasser doesn't have more than 8 sheets, 8 valid people on there, that canvasser may be terminated, or that canvasser may be looked at or retrained again. And so some of those companies have within those trainings. And so some of those companies are built within those trainings and supervision to catch fraud for their clients. They cost a pretty penny. But the thing is that if you pay that cost, you will be on that list. 9 times out of 10, you'll make the threshold of being a congressman. But if you use another service that's not very vetted or doesn't have those safety holds to get you to the candidacy, but they're a cheaper price, then you run. This is the risk that you run. And so right now, day and age, the economy, prices are everything come up. Canvassers need to make a living also. And so the price per canvasser has gone up. And so some of the candidates who are running are looking at that, well, I may not want to pay that price for vetting services. I'm going to go elsewhere. Well, when you go elsewhere to another company that may be on the lower, that may be cheaper, but they don't have the services or don't have the quality control that the other ones have, then this is the risk of results you may have. You get.
But you know, the thing is too, Norman, is that when you do get or you hire a service to do your signature gathering process, the end result still has to fall upon that candidate.
Yes, even if the candidate, even if the vetting service you pay top dollar for, brings your sheets in, as a candidate and as a team, you have to vet those signatures yourself also to make sure, hey, what I'm turning in is valid. And so that may be something where that may be in the contract where you can only, you know, some companies may say we can pay you half up front for this many. Once you vetted them and we vetted them, then the rest of your contract's fulfilled. Candidates do that quite a bit. I'm not sure just the relationship, how they happen with these organizations that are having so many people not being on the ballot. I'm not sure how that happens. But what I do know is that this is a high alarming account of folks not making the ballot, especially after we saw the debacle in 2022 on the Republican side. And but at the same time, we see candidates who made that list who are veterans of the game, who've been in there, that know the people, may not use the vendor services. They may use their supporters, mom and pop operations, people who are door-to-door canvassing folks that did it face-to-face, block-to-block, street-to-street, and they're able to get their signatures, and they're able to be validated. And so it may not be the money. You don't have to pay the money all the time, but you, as a candidate, as a core, as a group, your campaign, there's always other options that you have to do. You have to do the ground. No matter what, candidates, you have to do the ground. You have to go out and meet people. And every time you meet people, you need signatures, you collect signatures. So you have to do that constantly. And all the time. Don't let it depend on anybody else to do it. Sometimes you have to do it. I've seen candidates that have came and talked to us or talked to organizations. Hey, by the way, I have some signatures here. I'm running for this thing. Sign my signatures. We may have 40, 50 people in the room. Their sheets are filled. They're valid signatures. And so I've seen that. And and 9 times out of 10, people appreciate that because it's face-to-face. I know you. I talk to you. I value. And, hey, yeah, I'll sign your seat. That's not a problem.
So in the few minutes that we've got left, Norman, what are some of the consequences, or are there any consequences if someone gets signatures and, like a service or a company, is there any consequences if that service has shortchanged that candidate?
Definitely there is. If yes and maybe yes and no. I'm not sure, because at the end of the day, as a candidate, it's your job to follow through the follow-up signatures. And so if you did not follow through, just anything like a contract, you may be able to sue for fraud. You may be able to sue for negligence, but it has to be proven fraud. So say, for instance, if 41 candidates that got off the ballot and maybe 20 of them may use the same service, there may be a class action lawsuit against that service. If it's only like a couple, if it's here and there, or they didn't use the service, it's kind of hard to say. But ultimately, each candidate is really their campaign's job to really follow up on the signature. You just don't trust a signature company blindly, even if you pay the big money. You don't trust them blindly. You always check. You always trust but verify, as they say.
So right now, for the congressional race, for the Senate race, we're pretty much going to find out on the 31st as to who may still be left on the ballot. And it may be some things that people may have been supporting particular candidates, and then come to find out their candidate may not still be on the ballot come August.
Right.
And that's the thing. But the main thing that we do here, as well as yourself and your organization, is to try and encourage people to vote. That's the important.
That's the most important thing. Definitely get people out to vote.
And research your candidates to find out if they're still on the ballot.
Definitely, you have to research. Don't depend on certain things. We all have a website up. The organization have a website up to let you know who's going to be on the candidate and who doesn't have a candidate, not off the candidate. And also your state clerks, the clerks' offices. I think Wayne County will have a provisional ballot out there to see who made it, who did not make it. So the information will be very clear for you guys to look out there and see who's on the candidate, who's running, who's not running, especially in the primary.
Now, give your contact information.
Yes, you can reach us at info@dcimovement.org. On the website there, you can follow up with there. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we are briefly on Twitter, but we're looking to go to another space too. So, but we'll be located there. So, info@dcimovement.org.
So now, but if a person does have questions about who's on the ballot, because everybody knows there's two more votes that's coming up. We know we've got the primary coming up in August, and then we've got the general election coming up in November. And that's usually the big one that everybody's trying to wait to see who's going to win the presidential nod.
Right.
But then at the same time, too, when it comes down to the congressional, when it comes to the Senate and the Congress, for the House of Representatives, we know in terms of that race determines who's going to run in the primary. Whoever wins the primary is going to run
in the general
against their opponent, be it Democrat, Republican, in the general election.
Yes.
So the important part is if you have a candidate that's running in the primary, you need to get out there and support that candidate because they may not make it to the general election if you don't support them in the primary. That's
actually a fact. The primary is the most important election right now. So support your candidate right now.
Okay. I've had Norman Clement on Expose Under the Sun today, sponsored by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. Norman, thank you again for coming on the show today. We'll have to definitely talk further about how this election is going to shape out. But you've been watching Expose Under the Sun, sponsored by the Detroit Native Sun News. If you'd like to get a copy of the Detroit Native Sun newspaper, you can contact Ms. Valerie Lockhart, 313-457-5944. Also, if you want to advertise in that publication as well, too. Again, have a great rest of the afternoon. Hope you enjoyed a very, very pleasant Memorial Day holiday service. And we look forward to seeing you same time next week. Have a great day.
Here at the Full and Fabulous Curvy Girl Project, we don't just focus on health, beauty, and self-esteem. We also offer an amazing summer program for young ladies ages 12 to 18. For more information, visit our website at fullandfabulous.org. See you soon.